Welcome to this intuitive public TV Simultistream. Today we're talking about the language bridge. Oh, and I'm still learning how to press buttons. This morning, I tried to schedule the stream ahead of time, and then something went wrong. So I think that there are more posts out there that may or may not make sense. Hopefully, people who see them will find us. That's not it. That's it. That's the right button. So we've been talking in previous broadcasts about somatics. And we've been talking about the vocational vitality of the story being we are all part of, and the story being each of us is experiencing. We've talked to a great extent about the infrastructure we've built that serves as a network disability recovery aid for people in the most disabled and most invisible circumstances. People who are typically not thought of or pushed away. People who don't know how to find caring relationship building, caring community, or a sense of family or belonging, and how we have developed the intuitive infrastructure and the tool sets of the intuitive network to be applied directly to these seemingly impossible situations. And a huge part of this ongoing moment to moment is about building language bridges. So one thing that we've mentioned a few times now, I think certainly in these Simultistreams, but also in many previous broadcasts, is that I might be speaking English and you might be speaking English, but the meanings of our words, the meanings we anchor for ourselves, we think this is what this word means, or maybe this set of 6 meanings is what a word might potentially mean. And yet we may encounter someone who has a very different meaning or set of meanings for that word or for a particular phrasing, so that we don't necessarily actually know what someone means when they say a particular thing, even if they say it in what seems like the language that we're speaking. And it's not just English, although English is full of trickiness. It's any language, Spanish, French, German, Arabic, many different, the Welsh language I have studied. There are many other languages that I've been very interested in. I've been very interested in Hebrew. I've been very interested in learning Polish. I have complex ancestry, and I seek to honor my ancestors by knowing more about the ways that language has evolved over time. But in any language, we have this happening. And I think particularly in languages that are heavily employed in colonial imperialist contexts where marketing has been brought in, where marketing is a major influence, what we have is, I think, a more constant redefining of many of the words we think we know the meaning of. And certainly in the United States, that is happening prolifically. And in other more colonially developed nations, that is happening prolifically. And those influences are all over the planet, no matter where we're talking about or what language we're talking about. And so at the intersections that we navigate, that we center, wherever we can for the intuitive network, we are always talking with and collaborating with the most severely affected people, the most disabled people, the people whose voices are least heard or recognized. And what we find is that wherever conflict occurs as a result of the misunderstanding of the language that someone is using, it can be eased and resolved and prevented when we build language bridges and we practice more ways of being fully present with one another and remembering together that we don't necessarily know what someone means by saying a particular thing. And especially at intersections where there is a lot of conflict, we're talking about people having experienced diverse trauma effects. This person over here experiences a particular trauma from a particular angle about a particular languaging. This person over here experiences a radically different trauma from a different angle, perhaps based on the opposite messaging, where it is a especially lucrative marketing strategy, business strategy to create these forces pitted against one another that result in people being pitted against one another when they are overwhelmingly misunderstanding maybe everything that one another is saying. And so what one person is responding to in a situation might not have anything to do with what the other person is actually communicating. What happens for the most severely affected people in these situations is that because there is such a reduction in capacity for communications at all, because there is so much neurological injury, especially neurological injury that someone doesn't realize they're dealing with, or it has been misrepresented to them, it has been mischaracterized or labeled in some way that directs them away from what the problem really is, which happens in so many different ways. There is a lot of terrible hardship being navigated by pretty much everybody on this basis, even for people who are doing really well in a lot of ways, even for people who have tremendous intersectional privilege. There can be invisible disablement that they don't have anywhere to go for someone who can support them in it or can even understand the language they have to speak in order for them to address it in the way that's most viable for their body. And so we end up with very complicated circumstances around sociopolitical ideology. We end up with very complicated circumstances around where people have to describe their own health and stability, their ability to recover from very challenging conditions in the ways that are most useful for them, because that's part of how the body communicates with itself. If I have to use a language to tell you the problems I'm experiencing that are not accurate to the problems I'm experiencing, I won't make much or any headway in actually implementing solutions to those problems. And you and anyone else is likely to really misunderstand me. And so one of the things that we must do at the intersections of the intuitive network is we are continuously inventing and re-examining the language that we're using so that it can be most accurate to our actual experiences. This can This can result in some confusion at times. It certainly results in we who communicate through the intuitive network, those who are bringing their voices together so that I can publish for us in the ways that I do at Max Memo, Intuitive Public Radio on Substack. There we go. It can be overwhelming for people to try to understand what's going on with all this different information, what's going on with all of these different languages. Oh, I don't know about that www. I don't know if that actually works. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Intuitivepublicradio.substack or www.intuitivepublicradio.network. The session that we recorded, that I and Ryan Erickson recorded, is still on the main page. And that's one of the things we're talking about. How can people recognize what we're doing when so many different languages of diverse expression are coming through? And yet, if we do not center the bridges between, the relationships between that broad diversity of different languages, there are many people who are never heard, who are never understood. And I'm going to put that here right now also. Well, that link will definitely work. It doesn't let me select the other thing that I did. That's good. That's functional. So in terms of us having discovered that we must create such language bridges, us having discovered that this is a level of complexity that a lot of people are unfamiliar with and feel nervous about engaging with, we also recognize that easing and preventing these kinds of conflicts is what prevents the deaths of our colleagues, because the most severely affected people get crushed between boats where there's some conflict going on that a bunch of more able-bodied people are able to engage with. But the most disabled people in that context, the most intersectionally affected, multiply marginalized people in that context, they don't have the ability to be in that situation of conflict. And so then they can be totally wiped out. And so we've had to focus tremendously on how do we build language bridges? How do we understand what one another is saying in a context where there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of intensity? How do we anchor with one another the most peaceful, gentle, inclusive dialogues that can possibly occur? And to do this in a circumstance where people who have survived extreme trauma often really need environments that are fully aware, fully able to support them in the ways that they need. But that means that survivors of different kinds of trauma need different kinds of environments. And so a lot of the time, not everybody can be in the same space. So how do we practice inclusion? How do we uplift belonging when we actually do have to compartmentalize a lot of our efforts? Because when people come into contact with one another, they might not be able to accurately interpret what one another is saying. They might not have the skills yet to be really present in attunement and to say, I think you might be saying this with the words that you just used. Could you tell me if what I understood is accurate to your experience? And this is a long process. This is something that does take a lot of time, depending on where you're at when you start practicing it. And so in the intuitive network, we are continuously watching for opportunities not only to know one another better, but also to make sure that inclusiveness really does mean inclusiveness, even if we have to be practicing that inclusiveness in a lot of different spaces, so that people with inherently conflicting traumatic experiences are not forced into contact with one another when they're going to misunderstand one another's languages, when that's going to result in conflict that is not navigable for them at that time. In any space where we're talking about inclusion or belonging, we have to be talking about inclusion and belonging in a real way, not in a partial way that excludes a lot of people because of the requirements for trauma recovery of a specific group of people. It's the same inclusion problem that many spaces are experiencing. And for the most severely affected people, it results in a situation where they can't even enter any social environment. They can't reach any resources because after a certain threshold, it's no longer even possible to code switch, because the code switching required is so complex. And it means that we have to have able enough bodies, healthy and stable and strong enough bodies, functional enough neurology to be able to discern and navigate what code are we switching to. And code switching at all is exhausting. And so what do we do with this really sticky challenge? Brendan Heidenreich would say wicked problem. I'm not sure if that comes from him or somewhere else, but he's the one who introduced me to it. So in the intuitive network, we talk to everyone. We talk to people who would never talk to one another. And we learn from every conversation. We build dialogues that can be as inclusive as possible. And often they are iterative and they are occurring in multiple different places at the same time, so that different spaces can be tending to the needs of people recovering from particular traumas. And many people don't realize when they start engaging with the intuitive network, they don't realize that there are people that they feel triggered by or upset by or threatened by. That we also talk to those people. We talk to everyone. We look for opportunities for respectful, patient dialogue with everyone, because that is the only way to stabilize circumstances of ongoing conflict and resource scarcity for those who are most invisible and most severely affected. Thank you, Rue. Code switching is already an abominable experience. When it's just one intense form of code switching that is necessary, if you can't do it, you're no longer safe to even try to be part of those circumstances. And yes, it exhausts the body. And if someone has these layers and layers and layers of necessary code switching, especially when we have so much neurological injury going on, so much unaddressed, unrecognized neurological injury going on everywhere we look, people can't code switch. people can't use the languaging that is necessary in that environment to signal, I'm here to be peaceful, I'm here to collaborate respectfully. If they can't use the language, often people are interpreted as not caring or being a bad person, not wanting to engage responsibly with other people. But if it's a situation of neurological injury, which this is really everywhere, reconsider every situation you're looking at to consider whether you might be in a situation yourself or interacting with someone else who might be experiencing neurological injuries that they don't even know about, that no one's ever taught them about, like me. That happened to me in some really major ways. And it took me years to re-anchor a form of languaging that would allow me to start explaining that to people in my environment. And until I did that, I was a lot less safe. I was a lot less stable in my function. I was a lot more subject to predation, to opportunistic perpetrators of one kind or another. And that is what happens to people who are increasingly intersectionally disabled, where there are a lot of different things they are having to deal with at the same time. And all of it can crash into one person caught at this intersection they don't know how to get out of. So we address that in really amazing ways with language bridging. Ryan Erickson just dropped by again. I put the link here. I don't know if you saw earlier, we were talking more about our conversation from April 14th. When we talk about music, when we talk about creative expression, when we talk about poetry, when we talk about channeling the core source self and discovering what emerges, we're talking about healing. We're also talking about language that is growing out of our inherent moment-to-moment experience. And doing that on our own by ourselves is one thing. And when we practice doing that together and building collaborative fluency through it, building relational integrity with one another where we feel the strength of our interconnections, that is the most powerful thing. And it builds language bridges that solve every problem under the sun, or in the nighttime, or in any other context. Any problem you're encountering might be solved with a language bridge. And it can change everything. So I'm going to take a short interlude break because I didn't do that at all yesterday. Anyone who would like to message me, possibly come on video with me today, I invite you to comment or to message me privately. Telegram is a great place to do that. I haven't identified a single place to tell people to reach out to me in order to do that. But we're learning things by going through this process. And thank you so much to those of you who are here learning with me. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Oh, sunlight. I am so excited about sunlight. Wow. The air was not so good this morning, so I have been keeping the windows closed. And I checked the air quality index and it had cleared up somewhat. And I thought, I'm going to open the window. Wow, is that amazing? So, what I want to talk about is language bridging and funding. We have so many different solutions emerging from our language bridging, from our courage, from our acumen, and our continuous practice of how we are talking to anyone and everyone who shows up for that conversation in a way that is respectful and patient, that recognizes what we need in terms of dialogue at our disability intersections. It can be so challenging for me to be able to be part of a conversation that inherently somebody that I'm talking to is going to have a lot of forbearance in terms of what is it that they think I'm saying, and what is it that they think my silences might mean, or if it takes me a while to respond to something. The only way for me to navigate conversations is for people to give me a lot of space for how I can gradually participate increasingly in those conversations. And we find that this helps us to make really powerful discernments about people who are most able to engage with our platforms, people who are able to most understand what it is that we're saying. And that's part of the practice that we're anchoring and teaching every day, so that more and more people will start to realize, there are ways for us to all communicate with one another, at least under certain circumstances. And the more we create those conditions, creating the conditions, another anchor point that Johanna Otigam has brought in, the more we find ourselves able to implement successful solutions. So when we're talking about funding, we talk about this in a variety of different ways. We talk about not only monetary currency, but also non-monetary currency, where it is not only the dollars or euros or the Federal Reserve notes, the mainstream currency that we think of, even the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. There are a lot of those now to be talked about, but also currencies of care, currencies of emotional labor, currencies of energetics, regenerative life energy. What strengthens us? What can I do in support of you that might have nothing to do with monetary economics, but everything to do with physiological economics, so that you feel suddenly strengthened, stabilized, physically vital. You feel motivated. You feel that you can do the thing that you need to do. That is a very important form of non-monetary, energetic currency that we can share with one another. And when we are aware of the non-monetary economics, of non-monetary currencies we are all working with all the time, we don't want to deprioritize them. We don't want to have them go missing. We don't want to fail to notice them altogether. We want to be anchoring them and centering them as the primary forms of currency that we're working with. And then The monetary economics is part of that flow too. The Federal Reserve notes are part of that flow too. And of course, many people are in situations where it is only money, it is only Federal Reserve notes that can buy them safe food, that can help them get access to a particular resource that is needed, some form of safety and stability. And thank you, Ryan, for what you have been doing in discussions with us about how do we get this work properly funded? How do we move through the steps that are necessary to be connected to all the different forms of non-monetary currency that then allow us all together to co-facilitate necessary monetary currencies? I love the time banking that Ryan is mentioning here also. I was very interested in that when I was working in Austin, Texas. That was one of the things that we kept looking at again and again. We were redeveloping our approaches to it. We tried a particular thing, and it's like, why didn't it work? We're not sure why it didn't work. Okay, wait, let's try this other thing. And that there was just a series of them where it was actually very frustrating. And the reason it was frustrating, actually, I would say now, is because at those intersections where I was in Austin, we did not have good information about toxic contaminants in our environments. Oh gosh, I see Kim B. I wonder if that's the Kim B I think it is. She can tell me. She can tell me if that's her. Kim, message me directly, privately on Telegram, and if you're our colleague Kim that I am thinking of, yes, absolutely, I'll bring you right on camera. So I would love to have this discussion with Kim. Let me go check in. Actually, maybe I can just do it here without starting the interlude. Oh, look. There she is. I hope this works. We have never yet tried this before. Yes, it's Kim. How awesome. All right, Kim, I'm sending you a link on Telegram. Let's try this and see what happens. Should I start the hold music again? I'll keep talking and I'll keep watching, Kim, for your messages. And let's see if she gets my message there. So in terms of, we're talking about monetary funding, we're talking about economic funding. Oh, there's Ryan. We were figuring out, okay, you're gonna need to let me know what buttons to push. This is so exciting. We're talking about the need for production help because of this whole, like, this can be very complicated, and we're having some of the very most important conversations. Ryan, I'll remove this from the screen right now, but let me know if you want to come on camera and I'll hit that button again. Let me check on Kim's message. Okay, so we're seeing if Kim Barra can join us. Kim has been working in our groups for the past 2.5 years or so, I think. I sent Kim that link, and Kim messaged me on Telegram. If you need help joining the video. These are the most important conversations for all of us to be having in terms of language bridging and in terms of funding. because there are certain economics that don't work at all for the most severely affected people unless monetary currency, is part of the conversation. And at the same time, where monetary currency has been most limited, it is for lack of the conversations about non-monetary currency, where people have lost a sense of the greater flow of many forms of currency in the world. And where key conversations there are missing, people are like, why is there no money in this situation? Why is it just not working? What do we do about it? And what we have to do to make more of the most effective conversations possible is we have to be practicing language bridging together. And that's the intuitive economic that we keep bringing back in. And that's how we are creating increasing opportunities for conversations between people who are most severely affected and people who are not so severely affected, all of us having a vast diversity of skills and strengths and awarenesses and lived expertise and many, many, many different kinds of resources. So I haven't seen anything else from Kim yet, and it's possible that she's navigating oh, there she is. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. Well, there's Kim's comment from before. All right, let me see. I'm going to add you to the video, Kim. What? Look what we're doing. Oh, now you're side. Oh no, there you go. Oh wow.
Hi. Can you hear me too?
Can hear you.
Wow.
People in the comments, if you wouldn't mind reflecting back to us, let us know what you can see and how it's looking and sounding. I'm just gonna sit with this moment for a moment. Oh hey, there's Ryan's back. There's no video though. Here to test produce for a minute. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan, so much. Okay.
I'm really sorry that my tech difficulties interrupted your whole process train of thought, but I'm really glad I got on here.
You haven't interrupted it at all. You're fulfilling some of the most important parts of it by being here with us.
You are magical. I saw Rue in the participants before. Is Rue still here?
I'm not sure.
Let's see. How can I do this? I'm not familiar with this platform at all. So like I know how to on Zoom check who else is on, but on here I can't. Rue, if you're there, hi Rue, I miss you. And hi Ryan, I'm really excited to sort of meet you like this. I've been watching you on YouTube with Megan and your conversations. Really interesting.
I'm having a somatic sensing experience.
Say more.
Cheryl Ann Rubner is still with us.
Yay!
It's really exciting when more of us can be here.
It's magic.
We have spent many, many years, and Kim, you know some of that from the past 2.5 years you've been in the network with us. And before that, many years, we could not reach one another. We could not sustain communications. And much of the network is still very affected by this, being cut off from communications over and over again, not knowing when we'll regain contact. So when we're talking about non-monetary economics, when we're talking about non-monetary currency, we're talking about anchoring life energy and relationship with one another in a way that actually restores contact and heals bodies. It makes it possible for us to survive impossible things. And when we're talking about funding, which Kim, you and I have had a lot of different dialogues about, Johanna and I have had a lot of different dialogues about, there is often this sense that there's something really malnourished about the way finances are usually discussed. It's like there's something really missing from this. And then people try to bring in the human elements our work with Upmarket Magazine, which is upmarketmagazine.substack.com. I'm not going to try to type it in right now. My functions are scrambled. We're talking about how are we bringing in the human elements of any business that we're doing, of any project that we want to see succeed, any kind of endeavor, any kind of collaboration. There are monetary economics that we've got to talk about one way or another, even if they seem really hidden. And we've got to know what we're doing with the non-monetary economics. We've got to be in true contact with one another, in relationship, trust building, developing the capacity to collaborate fruitfully with one another, and with the levels of adversity and disability, and predation that are going on at intersections where the most severely affected people are hopefully still surviving. We never know who is still surviving until we hear from them again. And Kim, your reflections about all of that have been huge in our conversations, where you have shown up in those conversations, particularly in the private network and all of these many different small groups. Would you share about your experience of encountering that and learning more about it?
Yes, I would if I can. I am feeling very emotional right now and very moved by everything you're saying. Because, as you mentioned, I've been in the network for about 2.5 years now, and I've, in that time, both, interacted in many ways with you and some of the other core members, and gradually and sometimes accidentally gotten glimpses of what the previous 7.5, 8 years were like. So I know some of the backstory, certainly not all of it, but the thing that's really bringing tears to my eyes right now is just the trajectory of how amazingly far you've come in your perseverance and your ability to keep at this and make this happen. Like, can I curse on here? It's fucking magical.
Well,
It's
you
like
did.
amazing. It really is amazing. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And okay, so
sometimes we have to. Sometimes the words have to flow out the way the words.
yeah, like it's just, I am just in awe of like the fact that this is happening. And I guess to try and get a little bit into the conversation that I think was going on, before I joined is just, you and I were talking about the finances yesterday, Megan, and, in a private conversation that we are definitely going to pursue. But I have been learning so much about, you very often talk, and necessarily so, about the most affected members of the community. But then I've also learned from you that we're all disabled. I am not a most affected member of the community. I am someone who has lived a life of considerable privilege and apparent normality, whatever the hell that means. I'm not neurodivergent. I'm not physically disabled. I'm not mentally disabled, other than, and this is a mental disability, I realize now, the indoctrination that I've had by way of my education and my privilege and kind of just interacting as a so-called normie in current modern society. It's like that in itself has been disabling, but I didn't know it. I'm learning that from you. And I just really feel so moved by all of this, because what I've always wanted to do and what I've always observed is like, oh my God, this world is really messed up and it needs to change. And I want to be a part of that change. Oh my goodness, Betsy's on here. Oh my God, hi, Betsy. Oh, the magic, the magic, the magic. I don't think I'm at all alone in wanting to change the world and make it better and be of support to people that need the support the most. And also, what I've learned in my 2.5 years here is that the way that many of us normies are taught to do that is completely messed up, is completely polarizing and separating and othering. And that's counterproductive to what it is that we're trying to do, whether it's financial, whether it is psychological. I was watching a bunch of stuff that I'll share with you later, Megan, about the whole mental health thing. I found some really interesting things on YouTube when I was going down that rabbit hole. But, the whole health and mental health system as it currently exists and how messed up that is. And we've talked a bunch about that. and now the finances, the business world, like everything, like the whole world has been so tainted, and most people don't even know it. And then the people that do know it, and the people like yourself that have been able to say, hey, wait a minute, what about this? We need to do this a different way, are mostly either silenced, killed, you know, just like, yeah, just censored in all sorts of ways. And so I'm really excited that this is happening and that I could get on here, and I'll stop talking now and give someone else a chance.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm putting a link in the comments, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen momentarily. Oh, it's so we got the background work. There's background. There's my picture, and there's Kim's picture, and then there's a link at the bottom. Man, this is so cool. So what you're saying is so crucial, Kim, and it's really hard on so many of us to any of us who encounter all of that. It's a serious situation. And for many years, as in this post that I'll show it again, as in this post that is called Frequency, that is still, it's a little further down on the main page right now of the Substack. What we have been anchoring and increasingly verbalizing is that previously we couldn't reach any resources. We couldn't reach one another. We couldn't communicate with one another without building a huge amount of intuitive infrastructure to make it possible for severely disabled people to compare notes or collaborate or even carry on any kind of conversation. And we couldn't find people in any other space that knew what we were talking about. We've had to educate about that from situations of very severe brain damage. My neurological injuries were radically severe before. And thank goodness I have been able to find more of the resourcing that has been necessary for me. But the amazing thing is, and about this, this post right here, that I'm trying to complete what I'm saying about, we've had to increasingly verbalize now, we have found such amazing resources now because of the infrastructure we've built, the network disability recovery aid infrastructure, because of the tool sets we're practicing, many kinds of tool sets, software tool sets, interpersonal tool sets, ways of dialoguing with one another. Because we do that, we have connected with so many resources and so many people who do understand this conversation. And our job now is to amplify these signals and build the language bridges and the resource bridges that connect people to these solutions, because they are there. When any of us is going through that terrible pain, it's a crisis. It's a spiritual awakening. It's huge, and it can be so hard on the body. And many people have that experience while dying before they find some way to regain some footing, a little bit, and then a little bit, and then a little bit. But many places, nobody knows about these resources because we have not had public media connectivity. We have not had larger structures that prioritize learning and understanding the languages survivors of these intersections are speaking. And as a result, there are lots of little projects where people are doing really powerful things to address parts of this, but almost nobody knows about them. So why did we build the Intuitive Public Radio Network? Exactly this. And so we are increasingly going to be asking for people to stop by and help us spread the word about what we're doing, share our links, put hearts on things, subscribe to platforms, reach out to people that you know and say, we need this to happen. This is connecting the voices of all of these most violently intersectionalized people who have nowhere to go for help. and who have no means of participating in a conversation unless we restore these collective forms of media privilege. And that's what we're doing. I always feel like it's such a complicated stream of information, but it's been complex to navigate. It's been complex to survive it.
And yet you've done it.
Like, wow, we're live broadcasting. And it does seem to be working. I made a mistake this morning that I think may have confused people about where they could show up and when. And let's see. We have,
Love you too,
we have
Rue.
6 minutes. We're good. Rue had to head out. I'm so glad to have had Rue here. It makes me so happy to have had Rue here. I want to make sure to get her link up here somewhere, and I need to ask her what link she would prefer. But we've been working together ongoing, and Kim's been with us in the network. We've been working together ongoing. Johanna Hatigam has been on several broadcasts so far, and we're planning a intuitive care farm stand that we will hold on a Simultistream in the near future, probably in the afternoon. Kim, I don't know if you might be able to join us for some of those. I think we're going to have to do them at like 4:30 Eastern, though. So that might not.
We'll see.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
We're still learning. We're learning how to do this. We don't know how this is going to unfold. Oh, look, I have a private chat. I'm going to check. Oh, good. Okay, cool. No, I'm right. Wow. I want to thank Ryan Erickson again. I'm going to put his link back here in the comments again. We have been having such amazing conversations about how important it is to resource this work, how important it is to resource Ryan's work. When I encountered Riffing with Ryan on YouTube, I started catching these little glimpses of something that was vital in such a key way for our intersections, which when I start describing that to someone, I never know if they're going to have any idea what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to know if someone will have had experiences. Let me just type this here. Did I spell everything right? I did. It's very difficult to know who will understand enough of the conversation to really be able to work effectively with us. And the conversations that have been happening around all of this these are really powerful conversations. And my energy from Ryan is that he believes really powerfully in what we've been talking about. And I and we in the Intuitive Network, we need his work supported abundantly so that we can build these bridges to people who will experience recovery outcomes. They're basically unheard of. People think that it's not possible to recover in those ways, but exactly the conversations that Ryan and I have been anchoring and looking forward to more in the future, that's a huge part of what we need flowing abundantly into the network. And in order to do that, we do have to talk about monetary funding. We do have to talk about how are we fundraising? How are we creating income generating platforms that help us solve these problems? Because they're so solvable and we have solutions right here with us.
Do I have time to make one comment on that?
Yeah. And if we go a couple minutes over, it doesn't bother me.
Okay, cool. So I just want to agree with everything you just said and say that one of the things that excites me so much, as I told you privately yesterday, but I want to repeat it here, is that, oops, alarm, sorry. Part of my previous, I guess, confusion or lack of belief that something like this was doable was around the fact that I was just viscerally very hesitant to get involved with anything with money or business because in the dominant world, it seems so evil and corrupt. And it is, I believe. But what I've been observing and learning here is that there are ways to hear, and in the networks that you've connected with, Megan, that there are ways to do it that are not evil and corrupt, that are actually a win-win for everyone involved. And that's what I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited about a lot of things, but that's what I'm excited about. This can be done without letting the usual financial trickery and fuckery corrupt us. Like, and that's so amazing. And also, I know very little about it. Similar with tech, those are just not areas of my expertise. But like, if I can learn them in ways that are going to allow us to continue and progress with this work, then I'm in. I'm all in.
I will say that we have made really wonderful strides in talking about business, not only with our work on Upmarket Magazine, but also Mark Silver's Heart of Business community anchors really important stuff about this. I'll get a link in here before we get off the line. Purple dot space is a particular, there are other purple spaces that we've discovered. But purple dot space is the community where I met Ryan Erickson. And there are a lot of other people in there that are leaning into what are the most life honoring business modalities? What are the most life honoring ways of flowing resources and growing income and stabilizing economic vitality everywhere we can do it. We don't have to cut off the bottom of the capitalist balance sheet anymore. We don't have to ignore all of these suffering people. We can take full stock of the entire balance sheet in a fully responsibly and honorable way.
That's amazing.
What was the link that I wanted to put here? Oh,
Mark Silver.
Yeah.
Part of business. I wasn't sure if I could specifically mention, but that's the one I was thinking of.
All right. Here is, whoops. Here is Mark Silver at Heart of Business. Did I do it? My eyeballs are sort of partly working. There we go. That one. And then
yes.
purple dot space is a lovely community. And we have so much to talk about both of those communities, because we have to connect people who are having these conversations. We have to facilitate more success. Oh, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, what? I'll shoot this one. That's fine. We have to make it possible for more people to recognize how powerfully each and all of us can show up to address this, because we're doing it, and you've been watching it happen. You've seen some pretty gnarly experiences that I've been through just in the past 2.5 years, and many people following our streams have known something about what was going on for me personally since 2016 or earlier. So we're going to keep telling these stories. Kim, thank you for doing this. This is so amazing. Any last thoughts before we close down the stream?
Just, I mean, I'm so glad I did get on here finally today, because I mentioned to you yesterday, I've had a rough weekend. I took today off, and usually I would be at my job at this time. So I'm not normally able to do this on weekdays, but maybe sometimes on Saturdays. This is a 7-day-a-week thing so far. So hopefully sometime on Saturdays I'll be able to do this. And in the meantime, I will definitely be paying more attention to the recordings, the after party, if you will, whatever else happens next in,
and of course,
asynchronous time.
Yes. And of course, everyone is always invited. Okay, where's the banner? I have a banner. It's here somewhere. There's an eyeballs situation. There's a neurology, an eyeballs neurology. There we go. Join us on Telegram Messenger. Anyone who sees this, t.me/communityipr will introduce you to many other intuitive spaces. That is primarily where we're coordinating media and support for one another and collaborative projects and all kinds of things. So that's the after party. There's basically 24/7 ongoing every moment of every day.
And Substack also. I've really, there's a lot of different platforms, and that is what sometimes confounds me, because I'm not good with all the different platforms. Like, I realized today I'm going to need a tutorial on how to make StreamYard work for me, because I can only see what's showing on the screen. But Substack has been pretty accessible for me as well. So Telegram, definitely primary source, and then Substack for some other links and goodnesses.
We'll keep working it out. We'll keep learning together and reporting
Yes.
our results.
Yes. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Love to you.
Much love to you. Thank you so much.
I am almost nonverbal with how awesome this has been, and I'll go have a moment of rest before actually I'm late for the next thing that I was going to attend. So we'll see if that works out. I want to mention Scott Perry also, because I'm hoping to head to his community chat. I'll put this in the comments, but it's ascottperry.substack.com. That's the next community moment that I hope to be participating in. So I'm going to go see if I can still join. We are swimming in amazing abundance with all of this. We are really privileged to get to solve these problems. They're tricky, but they're worthy, and the rewards in them are, I think, unprecedented. So we all get to experience that. And thank you to everyone for being a part of it. Everyone who is here really fuels this. And I'm so grateful to get to be participating in it. I'll see you soon. I'm going to sign off.